Hi, I'm Renee Tucci, AIFD, and today we're going to look at a demonstration on how to create a floral necklace. To get started creating your floral necklace, you need a few materials on hand. Firstly, we need some aluminum wire. My sample piece here is done in pink, but today's version is going to be made in purple. You'll need a tape measure. You'll also need some tools like wire cutters, floral snips, a floral knife if you use that. You'll need some floral adhesive and some U-glue dashes. You'll also need scissors, needle nose pliers, and fishing line. To create our floral statement necklace, I want to make it a little beefier. So instead of just using a single piece of the aluminum wire as our structure, I'm actually going to cut 3 separate pieces and then wrap them together. So for the inner circle, what you'll need is 3 pieces of wire, 2 of them cut at 18 inches and the third one cut at 20 inches. And the reason for the third piece being the longer end is because that's how we will create the clasp at the end. To begin wrapping, take your 3 pieces, find your longest, and roughly leave 1 inch of your longest piece on each side so that you've got an area to bend for the clasp. And once you have that established, you'll take a U-glue dash for a temporary hold. You can wrap it around your wires. Once you have your wires temporarily in place, now you're ready to wrap. So I'm going to use a gray yarn today to do my wrapping. And you'll start by just impressing the yarn into the U-glue dash and the adhesive will hold it in place. And then begin to wrap, including a little bit of the overhang piece, the clasp piece, and then neatly wind it back down until you're wrapping all 3 pieces as one. Continue wrapping down the length of the wires. When you reach the other end, you'll want to wrap so that you cover the 2 ends of the shorter pieces. And once those run out, just tie a knot with the yarn to end it, leaving the extra length of the third piece exposed to create the hook for the other side. Once you've got a knot tied, you can trim off the tail using a pair of needle nose pliers. Take one end and bend it over completely, creating a U shape. And take the other end and bend it over in an N shape where the bottom is left open to hook into the other end. Once you have the hoop connected, then you can gently mold the inner wires to be more of a circular shape, and you'd like it to be as symmetrical as possible. Now we've got our inner ring. Let's make our outer ring. And you do that by a very similar process, except each section is going to be 17 inches, so we'll need 3 pieces of wire cut for each section at 17 inches. Once you've got your 3 pieces cut at 17 inches, you can line them up. We don't need an extra length on these. And temporarily hold them in place with the U-glue dash. So you just wrap the dash around the wires. You can even stretch the dash to help it really cover for you. and you'll do that to both sides, straightening the wires as you go. They do have a natural curve to them, so you're fighting that a little bit, but it's very easy to manage. Okay. And then we'll start to mold this into a circular shape. And we'll start to line it up against our initial ring. And we want it to be about 2/3 of the way up the ring. And kind of play with it a little bit, see where it lines up, try to make it as even as possible. And by using the U-glue, it will press into the yarn, and then you can gauge if you need the wire to be a little more flat or a little rounded on the bottom. Once you're happy with your temporary placement of your second ring, pre-cut a length of yarn for yourself. I would cut maybe 3 yards, roughly. And you can start wrapping them together. So again, press the yarn into the U-glue piece and start taking the yarn through. It can be a little tricky at first, but once you get it going, it's very quick and easy. So I'm going to go up where the U-glue is and the tips, just to make sure I get that nice and neatly covered. And then neatly back down again. You don't want to do too many layers though, because you don't want this piece to be bulky. It should be an even taper from one ring to the next. So I finished wrapping my second ring, and now I've got my third ring lined up the same way. 3 pieces of wire cut at 17 inches, temporarily held in place with the U-glue dash, and now I'm going to wrap it with the yarn. And I'm wrapping the third ring around the second, and I'll proceed down and around. As you work your way winding around the necklace, when the bottom row meets up with the second, simply wrap the two together at the joint. To create the inner swirls of the necklace, you'll want to cut some pieces of the wire roughly 7 inches in length. Then, using your needle nose pliers, twist each side into a coil shape. Now some of these can be looser in coil, like so. Others can be tighter. Once you get the coil started 1 or 2 spins, you're able to use your fingers to adjust. Once you have between 15 and 20 coils ready, you can start laying them onto your necklace base. And the easiest way to do that is actually to gently lay it on the frame and play with it. Turn it, twist it, and see where you like how it ends up. And once you find a position that you're happy with, cut yourself a piece of fishing line and attach it with a square knot. Once you have one side tied on, then you need to just tie the other side on. Now keep in mind that you'll want to line it up from the front, but your knots should be in the back. So once you have it roughly in place, you can lay it down, thread your fishing line through, and tie the square knot, keeping the actual knot part in the back of the structure. Trim off any extra fishing line tails. Then proceed to add more and more spirals, fitting it together like a puzzle as you go. There's no right or wrong amount of spirals that you want to put in here. You could put them strictly on the sides if you like, or as I'm going to do, which is to cover the entire interior. Now we're going to move on to our finished version, which has all of the spirals attached to it already. This is a really wonderful base to be working with, and you're able to keep it and reuse it over and over again if you're wise about how you apply your fresh materials. So let's just talk about our fresh materials here quickly. I have a miniature Phalaenopsis orchid plant that I'll be clipping the blooms from. I have some houseplant ivy, some miniature inch plant, and some purple gomphrena. Gomphrena is great to use in this application because it dries beautifully. So even if you start with it fresh, it will hold and it won't change appearance. So to wisely add your materials, first sort of think about what you might want where. And so in that case, I'm going to temporarily set my orchids in and decide where I want them. So I think I would like a piece here, and then maybe another piece here. But what if we do something a little different and add one large piece? So I happen to have this beautiful large version, and I'm going to clip a bloom from that. Now to add this to the necklace, what you want to do is completely cut the stem away so that it's flush to the bloom. Then you'll add just a dab of the floral adhesive. What this does at this point is it's just sealing in the moisture for the bloom itself. So we're not going to use this at this point to attach the flower to the necklace. We're just going to let that sit for a few minutes and seal. We'll do the same thing with our miniature orchids. We'll put a little bit of glue just on the back where the stem meets the bloom. Once you decide where you'd like your pieces, simply take your U-glue dashes and using a pair of stainless steel or Teflon coated scissors, you can trim your U-glue dashes into even smaller bits. So I anticipate that I'm going to need 1/4 of a dash to attach each orchid. So I'm going to cut the dash, peel it away from the paper, leaving just a small bit. And I'm going to attach this piece of U-glue right there. I'll peel away the second piece of paper, exposing the adhesive. Then I will add just a bit more glue to this orchid because at this point the initial glue that we put on there has set and it's doing its job in sealing the moisture into the bloom. So now we just need a bit of glue to help it actually attach to the necklace itself. So I do just a little dab of glue on the bloom, and I put that glue directly on the U-glue spot. So we're actually attaching the flowers to the U-glue and not to the necklace itself. So that way when we're finished with the event or the soiree where you've worn your statement piece, you can actually peel the U-glue off and your piece can be reused again. Now that I have all my orchids in, I just wanted to point out that I was very deliberate and careful about how I placed my orchids, making sure that all of the throats were pointing down. You could turn them in other directions, but that would fight the pattern and the line that we've created. We have enough rhythm going on with the swirls of the aluminum wire, so I wanted to make sure that the orchids were all facing the same direction. Okay, so now let's add just a few more items. I'm going to add a bit of the gumfrina, and I'm going to do that in the same way with the U-glue floral glue combination. Now that we have our gumfrina added in, we're going to add just a bit of the ivy, and we're going to add it in the same manner with a little bit of glue and U-glue. Lastly, we're going to add some pieces of the miniature inch plant. This has a beautiful intonation of purple on the underside of the leaves with the green on top. And this is going to go actually sheltering over the blooms. So a little bit shorter and among the blooms and some over them. Lastly, to enhance the color palette, I have a few pieces of the silver-toned lamb's ear here. And I'm going to trim those so that they're all a little more appropriate in size to the necklace, and I'm going to add those in as a finishing touch. As you can see, when creating a statement piece of floral jewelry, it doesn't take a ton of materials to make a real wow. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to create this floral necklace.